Welcome to Revealing Conversations with Petra Nicoll, once again from the beautiful Louise River in Woodland, Washington, coming to you with some good news. I think we all need some good news right now with all these riots going on in the world, around the world indeed, not only in America, because I get reports from Germany, Italy, France. There are very unhappy people all over the place. But today I have the great pleasure of introducing to you Susan Greif. And I met Susan when we published this book here. That was 4 years ago. Oh my God, time flies.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 4 years already. Wow.
I know. And Susan's chapter in this book was called Crossing Bridges. So we're going to be talking about her work in New York. But before we begin, I'll read you Susan's bio. Let me put my EMF glasses on. Susan Greif is an ancestral trauma and creative transformational expert, an inspirational speaker, author and founder of Art Mends Hearts. Susan interprets her clients' drawings to help them see their unconscious and notice where they hold their ancestral trauma. Her goal is to help her clients release old, stuck energies that keep them feeling powerless, paralyzed, panicked, and in pain. And then she offers her creative strategies to help them take action and make shifts in their lives. As a daughter of Holocaust survivors, Susan specializes in working with daughters of Holocaust survivors like herself. Additionally, she works with women of domestic violence, trauma victims, and women in transition. Susan offers one-on-one coaching, couples workshops, corporate workshops, and retreats. Susan is the trauma expert co-host of bi-monthly YouTube talk show host and podcast, Live with the Vibe, where 4 expert coaches have the heart to heart. So that is HARD to heart conversation. Susan can be also seen at Carpool Coaching Weekly on Thursday Thoughts at 3 with co-host Jackie Atchison on Facebook Live. And I've been following that. That's been so much fun. Welcome, Susan. It's such a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Petra.
God, I have missed you.
I miss you too.
We almost made it, didn't we? I almost came to New York, and then, it wasn't the right time, it felt like, and so now we pick up again. Yeah. All in its sweet time, exactly. So how have you been, and what's going on in New York?
What's going on in New York besides the pandemic and the riots? Yeah. Everything else is fine. In my home, I'm very grateful. I've got great gratitude. Have my family with me. We got our health with us. Business might be slow, but we're there. And so I'm very, very fortunate. And I thank all those people who put their lives in the forefront to make our life safer. Mm-hmm. So other than that,
yeah. Tell me a little bit, how did you start your business with Art Mends Hearts? When I first met you through Life Sparks, I was so fascinated by that title. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I love what you do because I do similar work helping people with trauma and so forth. So tell me a little bit about your business, of how it's morphed over the years.
Wow. So when it started, I actually had gone back to school about 10 years ago to get certified in the creative arts therapies. And I started working with children first. I found kids with maybe learning disabilities like dyslexia, language, and the emotional that's related to that, emotional issues are related to that. And I loved it. And as time went by, I ended up belonging to a few Facebook groups called Daughters of Holocaust Survivors or Children of Holocaust Survivors. And there was like so much emotional trauma that came up. Mm-hmm. And from that, I decided to offer a complimentary workshop for people to come and attend and express themselves. Now, what I do, a form of expression, is my creative expression. So I use art as one of the way to see our subconscious. In other words, I interpret people's drawings so they can see where they hold their traumas, where they hold their pain, where they hold their thoughts and their beliefs, so that they could see and contextualize, opposed to, have an abstract thought, or in the subconscious, they can actually, perceptualize where their pain is and how can we make the shifts? How can we take actions to change their lives? And I found that to be very meaningful, because now became people who breaking the cycle of ancestral trauma, the intergenerational post-traumatic stress disorder children of survivors, whether it's Holocaust, whether it's war torn, whether it's 9/11, it doesn't really matter. And of course, what's going on in this world right now is all about the ancestral trauma being triggered once again.
Exactly. So how do you do this work? So you give people, well, basically they come to your office, you give them a piece of paper and they start drawing something with crayons or with paints or whatever medium they choose. Is that how that works?
Yes. I offer them a prompt usually. And usually it starts off whatever their situation is. A lot of times it's all relational issues, whether it's relationship with a family member or with a significant other. And there's always that same issues that they have. So we start going back to the age when we were 5, because we tend to remember most. Until, starting at age 5. So we do a regressive, meditation. I bring them there and we do a drawing basically about whatever comes up for them as a 5-year-old with their family. And we draw a scenario. It's called Connected Family Drawing. And, then I take a look at the colors they chose, the medium they chose, the placement, what's big, what's small, what's right, what's left, what's underlined, what's significant, and from that, and what's missing. And from that, I start picking out questions to ask them about them, because what happens is I see these little red flags, but I don't want to interpret them for the client, because the client's drawing is a reflection of their thoughts and beliefs. So I don't want to make an assumption of what it really means. And then they do a writing about it. So now it's not only drawing, but now it's in their head. They write about, what thoughts, what emotions, what memories come up. And again, we talk about, the questions that I ask them. And that makes every first session is always an aha moment for them.
I can imagine how powerful is this. So
sorry.
That's okay. I was
welcome to Zoom.
right, with the little moments. I was just contemplating, thinking about our interview today. What's going on with all these elderly people that are now locked away. They can't hug their grandchildren and their children, and the trauma that they're experiencing right now. Or the children, they can't go to school right now and see their friends, and they don't completely understand what's going on, and how traumatizing and how much PTSD we're going to be facing here.
Absolutely. First of all, there's social isolation.
Yeah.
That in itself is very painful. We are social beings. We are social beings, and we're supposed to socialize. One thing to be alone, another thing is to be lonely. And loneliness can create depression and anxiety and so forth. And children too, going to school, not interacting with their peers and being, stuck at home with their parents, who they themselves are frustrated, anxious about what's going on in the world, and can take it out on other people in the family. For me, I think about domestic violence and those women or children who okay, I shouldn't say that, people, men, women, and children who are stuck in an abusive relationship and they can't get out. So there's a lot of trauma going to come out of this. It's totally PTSD. I feel bad for everybody in the front lines, who, especially doctors and nurses, who see so much death and they did not sign up for military work, dealing with that trauma. They didn't sign up for it. They just thought, okay, just a couple people, but they didn't realize how hard it was going to hit them.
So the question I have, what fascinates you the most about your chosen line of work, Susan?
I think what fascinates me most is, like I said earlier, like that aha moment that people have. I mean, I've had clients who said, oh my God, I've been 20 years of therapy and I learned so much more in this one session than I learned over 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm not one to want to have clients linger for years. My idea is to transform. So I kind of do both, like the past, and I give them my unique multidisciplinary approaches to help them make the changes, to take the actions to move forward. Because, most therapists, first of all, may be stuck in the past. And the truth is, not everybody's going to share information with their therapist. They can lie, they can omit, they can totally forget. So it's not helpful. The subconscious in the drawings is just too lucid. You can't ignore it. It's there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, all right.
I love that, because we need more tools like this. That's always been my pet peeve with traditional therapy, is how I get people, with biofeedback and coaching, and I do the golden light meditation, which is inner child work essentially. Right. And so it's similar to this, except a different medium, obviously. Right. I'm always so fascinated, how people can stay in therapy for years and years. And how long have you been in therapy? Oh, 10 years. Oh my God, you've been in therapy for 10 years? And then they do a session of something different. I'm not saying that, mine's necessarily the best, because I do think that yours is probably the better ones out there, because it is congruent. Because they're writing, they're drawing, they're really involved in it. Mine is more on a mental, spiritual level. I work with that. But I love that you're using those mediums, and I think it's just fantastic. Now you have a book, don't you? You have a book out.
No, that was the book that we talked about.
Yeah, but you are going to write a book. Maybe
I am in the middle of writing my book. I had put it aside. I was writing a book. I had put it aside because just like it wasn't my time, and I know. Okay. It'll be time, it'll come out, because there's just so much information in it. I need people to learn about, different ways of self-healing. And that's what a book is about. So hopefully I'll start working on it again.
Well, maybe you'll be going through Petra's publishing house. Who knows?
I would love that. I would love your help. There you go.
So do you give, we already asked that question.
I'd just like to also add that, it's not just about drawing. I also do movement, and I also use chakra work, and I do energy work for those who are comfortable with it, because the drawings and chakras do work on the same level. Drawings of what it is in each chakra that's keeping you blocked becomes, again, visual and perceptual.
Fantastic. So you, when you're doing the chakra work, so if you are seeing, for example, in a drawing, let's just do an example. Let's just play a little bit, shall we? So say someone comes to you that was molested as a child, okay? Mm-hmm. And you're seeing it in the drawing.
Yes.
You're seeing it in the drawing.
Yes.
And they start to write about it. Mm-hmm. They write a little, half page or something of what they're feeling in that moment as they're drawing this, so however you work. I have not done this class with you, but I'm very curious now, and I would love to teach a class at our retreat house here in Oregon. So when you go to the chakras, then do you actually do hands-on like Reiki, or do you start moving energy for them? How does that work, Susan?
Well, there's two ways, because not everybody is into energy work in a way where I do hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hand touching thing. For those who are not comfortable, I don't have to go there. I go into body dialogue, which means you have this conversation with your body that's affected, that's closed, that chakra that's closed.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we have this body dialogue to help them open up the chakra and take the steps to keep them open. So sexual molester somebody who's sexually molested, it could have issues with relationships. They have issues with maybe creativity or fertility, and that would probably the sacral chakra. And we delve into the sacral chakra and we have this conversation, like your womb, for instance, what does your womb need?
So how do you deal with someone who has a catharsis once they figure it out what it is and they start to go into that outpouring of energy, whether that's through tears or some form of hysteria? How do you remedy that in your sessions?
Well, either I can offer them breathing techniques or meditation technique, or I can have them journal and regurgitate everything onto paper, or just even scribble, so get out the energy, and that brings, again, the thoughts and the emotions. So it's not just scribbling to get out the anxiety or drawing of something. So when one of the other things I do is I volunteer weekly at the Englewood Women's Rights Information Rights Center, and there's a lot of women there with domestic violence involved in that. So there was this one woman who she couldn't even discuss it. All she did was scribble, and it became this black page, right? And that's really darkness. And she didn't want to see it. She didn't want to face it. But even scribbling releases energy,
right?
And you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be an artist to do what I do. I had to work with 2 3-year-olds. You don't have to be an artist, but you have to, it's the process of creating the art. It's not so much the art itself.
Beautiful. What do you personally focus on while analyzing a drawing?
What do I personally focus on? I do a lot of meditation, first of all, prior to seeing my clients, because I feel I need to get into the zone, and I feel, channeled and in the zone with my clients. I feel empathy and understanding, but I also set my boundaries in a way, I don't take it personally. Like everything in life, if there's something negative, about somebody else, we kind of like to put up a mirror to have it reflect them and not absorb that negative energy. And I want to be that mirror for them so they can see themselves, and they see themselves in the drawing. So these are different ways of being mirrored. And I am with them wholly and solely, and nobody else matters.
You're probably familiar with Ho'oponopono, right?
I'm sorry?
Are you familiar with Ho'oponopono?
No, I know you're involved. I don't know what that is.
Oh, we have to have a conversation. I think that's another interview. Because it's a big conversation. I should do an interview or some kind of a Zoom discussion on that at some point. Because I think the technique, the Hawaiian family therapy called Ho'oponopono, would be very helpful in exactly what you just described.
Oh, great. I'd love to. I'm always learning, right? I'm always learning.
Being the reflector, and where do you go in your thoughts when that happens?
Right. And even in dance movement, I reflect for my clients so they can see how they are moving and what comes up for them. It's all about reflection. It's all about the world as a reflection of who we are, right?
Rudolf Steiner used a lot of that in his genius, incredible Waldorf schools, where they do a lot of movement, learning the alphabet and so forth. And it's so wonderful that, we have schools like this, although it breaks my heart right now that these schools are shut down, where these children have such the only outlet. They normally don't get that at home. And, you know, there's too much technology, in my opinion. Don't you think that there's too much technology put in front of our children right now? What's your opinion on that?
I have to agree. First of all, I shadowed a child in a school with learning issues, and half the class was about being behind the computer. And I'm watching the teachers like go off to the side. They're texting, they're chatting, and they're losing their ability to have social interaction. Maybe they are comfortable at home with their, the kids, because they get to play, all kinds of video games, and they get to play all kinds of, there's Zoom classes. There's a lot of technology, but like in everything in life, there are pros and cons. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is totally and wholly joyful. Every time you have something positive, there's always a negative, right? There's duality in life.
Well, one of the things I was dreaming about is offering retreats for children where they can come and they leave their cell phone at home or in their backpack or wherever for a couple of days, just to sit outside and sit around a fire and sitting by a river and actually interacting and chatting.
Yeah. I think it's so important. I mean, listen, first of all, when I'm around my devices too long, I feel it. I feel the energy, and it creates anxiety for me. I have my phone now turned off at a certain time in the evening. I don't look at my phone. I don't text anybody. I don't want to know. I'd rather not watch TV in my room, but my husband would like to. But I have to say, whatever it is, it's got to be light. I don't want to watch the news. I want to just watch something light. And so I've been totally limiting my devices. However, I do get chances, opportunities like this to have great interviews with amazing women from across the country, right? Mm-hmm. I have the opportunity to do online workshops and even have some of my clients who are outside of the New York area to do, work with my clients that way. So, like I said, everything is a pro and con. It's just like everything in life has to be balanced.
Well, we had a guest last night who is very hyperactive, and his phone died.
Oh no!
And he walked around in circles for a while because he came for dinner, and he said, I am realizing right now how attached I am to my phone. I honestly cannot live without my phone. I don't even know what to do with my hands right now because I'm on my phone all day long.
Right. I think it's our fidget machine, because we're so anxious. We need to fidget.
Fidget, exactly. So do you continue drawing through your program, or does it switch at some point to talk therapy? Like how long does someone, like a typical client, how long do you give them to draw, or how do you space that out?
Okay, so I try to have my clients book a package of 10 because I want to know they're committed. If they're not committed, they said one of the first things of transformation, steps of transformation, is willingness. Mm-hmm. It's only when you're willing to, open up Pandora's box and make the change are you going to do it. So I need commitment. So purchase a package of 10 sessions, and each session is about 50 minutes long. And I'm usually a little kinder and kind of let it go a couple more minutes, but because, I just can't leave people hanging. Then I always start off with a drawing the first session. Mm-hmm. And then I may have other future drawings, depends on what we're talking about. Like if you and I are having a conversation and then all of a sudden, like I get that little aha moment, it's like, oh, I need you to draw something. Yeah. I would ask you, okay, this just came up for me. I need you to draw this out. Mm-hmm. So it could be that. It could be people who are uncomfortable with drawing and I don't want, it could be just be journaling. And also, by the way, between each session, I make my clients journal. Whether it's their, not only just their thoughts and emotions, not just gratitude, or affirmations or whatever. I also have them create a schedule for the week, get things going and make plans, get actionable, SMART goals as they call them, right? Specific, measurable, what's the A again? Accurate and I forgot. Anyway,
Well,
time. I forgot what it was, but anyway, so these are the goals so that they make the change, and we need to hold them accountable for the week. That's where transformation happens, because you can go to a talk therapist and you can, and I've done this before, you can vent and you can complain. You leave the office and 1 week later you find you're venting and complaining about the same thing, and that's why we keep going back to therapists.
but they stay in the story.
Yeah, they're still in the story, so that there's no
Story.
transformation made. So that's why journaling is important for them to do. They have homework assignments. A lot of times I will just come up with a question. I say, okay, I need you to write about this week, about something specific that I feel they need to write about. So, and it depends. If clients don't like to draw, I won't go, we don't do that anymore. We get, I can do movement with them if they want to. I can do, like I said, energy work. I do art chakra, or inner body work, or you say inner child work. We do that too. But I really try to understand my clients and see where they're comfortable with. So if they're not comfortable drawing, I don't make them feel uncomfortable. I want them to feel they're safe. And I want them to feel they can trust me, and I give them the opportunity to express themselves the best way they can express themselves. And if that just might be talk therapy.
That is just fabulous, Susan. That's just fabulous. So what was it like? Because when you and I talked about creating this group and talking about what it was like to grow up with Holocaust survivors, Holocaust survivor parents. And obviously I come from Munich, Germany. So I'm on the side of the German people that pretended that there was no Holocaust, some of them, or in denial that was even in the backyard. My brother lives in Dachau, in Munich, right? So I stayed with him, and I went again to the Dachau concentration camp and did some prayers, because I had an uncle that was starved to death there. And his brother was actually, so my grandfather's two brothers, one was a socialist who died in Dachau of starvation, and the other one was a Nazi who put him there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, we were, just for the audience to understand, it was a really excellent idea to get in front of a panel and talk about how did Nazi Germany affect German people like myself, because it really affected me when I found out. I went to a private school and I didn't know what was going on until I arrived in London, England. And suddenly I find myself in a Jewish family, and I find out about all these atrocities that happened in my own country, in my backyard. And I felt really ignorant. I said, how did I not notice? How did I miss this? I had this high life, wonderful little childhood, and I missed all of it. And then it just came like an avalanche of energy over me, to the point that I couldn't even speak German for 2 years.
Wow.
I had to literally cut out the language. And I just wonder what it was like for you growing up with parents that had actually gone through this. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Well, what was interesting is the first time you interviewed me was right after we had written the book. And I brought up the fact that I was a daughter of Holocaust survivors. And as soon as we hung up our interview, we ended the interview, you called me back. And you had told me that you were a German girl growing up. And you had told me things that made me wonder, like, wow, like I only thought we were the victims. I grew up believing that, all Germans are bad, all Polish people are bad. I mean, a lot of people have the stigma still, don't buy German cars, or don't buy anything that was made in Germany, and Polish. And I mean, because my parents were Polish, and they were not in concentration camps, although I do have relatives who did go to concentration camps. They were hiding in the forests in Russia during that time. But I remember you made some kind of comments about your father, I think, was forced, or somebody was forced, a German, he's a youth Nazi, and forced to raise their their hand by gun. There's another Polish girls were kidnapped, I think you told me, and they were raped for more Aryan babies. So I started having empathy, like, wow, I just always thought we were the victims.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned, like, no, there are other victims in here. I didn't think about it. And that needs to open up a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had met Christina Heike, she and I had another conversation, and she was afraid to tell me she was German. She was so scared because she was traumatized by the fact that, she felt such shame and guilt, I'm sure, as you did. And so I think it's about opening the dialogue. And that's what our panel was supposed to be like. It was supposed to be about opening the dialogue between two daughters of German, World War II survivors and two daughters of Holocaust survivors. That really never manifested. Although I did do a talk, local talk with Christina. But I think it's all about the ancestral trauma. It's all about our cultural beliefs, what we were placed to believe, what we were supposed to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, wow, all Germans are horrible. And not only that, I have family who lives in Germany. So I'm thinking, like, well, that's so weird. Why are they living in Germany? It doesn't make sense. They live in Frankfurt. And so, it kind of, you opened my eyes. Mm-hmm. At that point when we first met, like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that. And that's why I think you and I were talking before we got here. I think there's something about, I wrote about crossing bridges in the book, the chapter Crossing Bridges in the Life Spark book is about me crossing my own bridges and not letting have the trolls beneath the bridge keep me from crossing. All that negative talk is the little troll saying you can't. But now I think the new crossing bridges is to help cross the bridge of divide. Mm-hmm. And I think we all need to do that because of what you and I have gone through and how we opened up and had conversations to understand each other's backgrounds, to understand how we were brought up to believe, what we were brought up to think. And
at the end of the day, we're all the human race. So if, let's just imagine tomorrow we have this ginormous UFO landing and some beings step out and they're about 1 million years ahead of us in their development, and they're called Pleiadians. And they look at us and say, you are us, we are you in the future. Humanity, we love you. Humanity, we adore you, but it's time for you to grow up.
Yes.
No more division, no more fighting, no more separation. And, and that's what I'm rooting for, obviously, for humanity to be able to work through the racial differences. Because that's all an illusion. And you and I understand this because we were fortunate enough to be brought up in those controversial type of families and situations where we were literally forced to have to look at that early on as children. I remember clearly my father forbidding me to have an Italian friend. And I said, why can I not have this friend? I really like this girl. I would like to bring over. Well, she's Italian. She can't come in the house. I said, why can't she come in the house? So then my uncle gave me a doll, and I was a tomboy growing up, so I only had horses and cowboys and Indian figures. And I was mountain climbing and skiing and stuff, I wanted to be one of the boys, I guess. Because, boys were more honored, so I figured if I was more as a boy, they would perhaps love me more, which of course another conversation.
There's a double standard in my home too, so I get it.
We know that one quite well. So anyway, I had an uncle who was quite progressive, and he gave me a black doll. I loved that doll. But I was afraid to show the doll to anyone in case they took it from me. And I never forget the day my brother ripped the arm out of my little black doll. And it was in that moment that something happened where I felt like I had to protect somehow people that had less than I had, or less tools, or less ability to survive. And so that was a very early on decision at age 6 or 7, when you know, I'm sure for you it came also at a very young age where, you know, you're on the planet to help people, you're on the planet to serve, you're on the planet to assist people in their growth.
Yes.
And so forth. So anyway, we go off into this subject about the Pleiadians, but I really do pray that they land pretty soon, although who knows.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's going on now? It's like, we must open a discussion. There's so much anger, traumatic, ancestral beliefs that hasn't gone yet. It's in the cellular level. The thoughts, the cultural belief, what we tell each other, what we teach our children. The education is really not a great education because, first of all, we don't all have the same education. There are more privileged people and less privileged people. And those who are less privileged don't have the education that's needed to learn and to accept other cultural beliefs. You know, I think that's what it is, whether it's you know, religion, whether it's nationalism, whether it's racism, whether it's gender identity, or, you know, sexual preferences, all of that. We all have, there's a stigma still to today, which baffles me, that people are still prejudging people based on what they look like, or, you know, rather than the actions these people take.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. And now with the coronavirus, I thought about this morning. You had all these people that were living paycheck to paycheck, locked up in their houses. Yeah. And suddenly now with these riots, the coronavirus conversation has died off completely. What happened? Why is nobody talking about coronavirus suddenly? What have you asked yourself that we haven't heard anything about coronavirus?
I don't want to get political here. How's that?
Oh my God!
What? I don't think it's the right place, or, you know, because that's negative. But I think a lot of people listen. I don't live paycheck to paycheck, and then I'm very blessed for I'm able to get what I need. So I'm very blessed, and I'm very grateful for that. However, like you said, people are living paycheck to paycheck. They go on incredibly long lines just to get food, to pick up a box of food for their family. They are hungry. When you are hungry, you become, you know, animalistic again. Yeah. You feel caged. You feel like you can't do, and nothing is worse than not being able to feed your children. Yeah. And so there's a lot of anger that's bottled up, and then including what happened to George Floyd was another trigger for African Americans to remember why they feel subhuman, you know, to a lot of white people. And I'm saying that only because the slavery, the trauma of slavery still is within them. The trauma of still feeling oppressed is still within them. And when you have people who are white supremacists and racists or neo-Nazis, you're dealing with these people that do not accept people for who they are, and they think they are greater than these people. So I understand why African Americans are feeling anger, because you're supposed to rely on the law enforcers, especially, to keep you safe, but they are not keeping these African Americans safe. And my heart goes out to a lot of them. However, it does not give permission for those handful of protesters, like around the globe, people are protesting peacefully, but the news is sensationalizing all of those rioters and looters. Yeah. And those people are the bad apples in the bunch. You know, those cops that murder and arrest because of race or shoot people down, you know, they are bad apples in a bunch. And I think the problem is we generalize everything. We generalize, you know, the stereotype, right? We stereotype that, all Germans are Nazis. We stereotype Jews are cheap. Mexicans are racist. Muslims are terrorists. We generalize. So, African Americans are thugs, and that's their stereotype also. So, and we have to educate each other that we have to stop looking people as a group and that they're all the same, because in every group there is a bad apple that creates and exacerbates the stereotype. So these rioters and looters are exacerbating the stereotype, and they're not helping the cause. I mean, Martin Luther King also, you don't meet violence with violence. You don't get anywhere with violence. You have to, treat hate with love. Kill them with kindness is more effective than violence. And that becomes the cycle of like, you fight, I fight back, you fight back, I fight back, and that's the violence. You got to stop the cycle, because it's getting nowhere right now. It's not helping the African American cause.
So what can we do to help individually?
I think there are, I don't have the links on me, but there are certain links that we can reach out to. Listen, even us white women have a nickname. I hear we're all Karens now. So
what are we?
Karen, have you heard that one?
No, I have not. Tell me.
So in the New York Post, I think New York Times, they talked about a white woman walking her dog in Central Park, and she was confronted by an African American man, and she already made the assumption that he was a thug, and so she's a quote unquote, they call it a Karen, like a white woman who's making an assumption that an African American man is a bad person. So, again, like, we have to stop generalizing and take people as individuals and not as groups, because when we look at it as a group, it's I don't know.
Well, what has to happen is we're at the edge of a massive breakthrough, I believe. I have a pretty optimistic view of all this. My partner asked me, he said, how do you feel about all this? Isn't the world crazy? And I said, well, this has been something that my spiritual teacher, my guru, told us 35 years ago that this would happen. He said 35 years ago that no planes will fly. There will be a great division on the planet. We will be facing a lot of tsunamis, a lot of earthquakes, tornadoes, so many earth changes. I believe there's some, rather than global warming, I believe we're going in the opposite direction with more of an ice age kind of situation, because I've done a lot of research on that. So stay warm. But I feel that whenever things are so explosive, whenever things are coming to a head, it's an opportunity for humanity to really do the work. Now the question is, how do we reach out and how do we make this more equal? Obviously, we have the 1% of the world that owns everything. So it has never been equal. I mean, Africa is suffering like, it's just extraordinary. If I have a day where I feel sorry for myself once, very, very, not very often, but if I do have just one little iota of feeling sorry for myself or bored or something, I just think about Africa. It's like, oh my God, I could be an African woman in the desert right now. I can't feed my child. I don't have any breast milk. I have nothing. I just sit there on the ground, on the dirt, and waiting for my child to die. And so things have to change globally. This is not a matter of just US or Europe. This is a matter of, we need to figure out what to do so everyone is fed, so everyone can prosper and grow. And we have to look at what is going on with this massive gap. I mean, the middle class is disappearing. We can agree on that, right, Susan?
Everything is going.
I'm sure you've seen this in New York.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
My German
is so listen, even our politics lately, it's getting further to the right, further to the left, further right, further left. I mean, there's nowhere in the middle, and you and I know about chakra healing. It's all about balance and finding balance on both sides. But every time you go too extreme in one way or the other, it is so unhealthy.
It's so unhealthy. Oh my gosh. So what are your wishes for the future, Susan?
You know what? I think what I really believe we need to do is learn to have dialogue, conversation, open up conversation, because, without the conversation, you'll never understand each other. You'll never be able to break the cycle. I wish I wish people start using their past pain as a way to inspire them to bring out how people survived and how they thrived, and help others be lights unto others. Petra, you and I, thank God, we're in the healing world. And as much as we can heal one person at a time, I wish you and I could really heal more people at once. I hope more people see this video, because we are out here and we are so open to dialogue. Anybody wants to create a panel. I mean, I would love to be on a panel with an African American. I would like to be on a panel with a Muslim, because I think we need to break the cycle. We need to listen to each other, understand what triggers us and why we believe what we believe, because we all have scars. We all have trauma in one way or another. And so we understand what it's like to go above your scars and take it with us. So we, like you and I, even though we came from different backgrounds, we both had our own trauma, intergenerational trauma, because of how we were raised.
Well, there was a conversation that came up this morning with our guest that was here that his phone died about the holographic universe. And, I believe that we can all rewrite our stories. And that's what you do so beautifully for people, is to lead them into the wound, into the tear in their soul. And there are some soul fractures that happen with people if they have massive, massive trauma. But we can create, according to Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, all these guys. I mean, there's epigenetics. You're not stuck.
There you go.
The story can be changed.
Yes.
And we can rewrite it, and we can help people move forward. But we have to be able to reach these people on a mass scale, just like you said.
Right. Well, thank God we've learned now that it's neuroplasticity. We can change our thoughts and change our mind and reconfigure all our neurons and make new neural connections. And I think people need to learn to deal with that. Listen, there's one thing, like they say, like, if you are Catholic and you want to come out because you're gay, there is that fear, because that's not what your cultural, or actually, Orthodox Jewish too, and I'm sure Muslims, if you have this cultural belief indoctrinated in your mind, you think you can't change it. But when you're able to challenge the thought, challenge your beliefs, and question, then you can make the change and live your authentic self. And until we do that, we can't move on. We can't be authentically us. And I think we need to learn to empathize with other people. First, we need to learn and love ourselves and respect ourselves. Once we can love and respect ourselves, then we take that relationship with ourselves and create a relationship with others by empowering yourself, like, setting boundaries, understanding and empathy, forgiveness, most important, because once you forgive and understand why people act the way they do or think the way they do, then we can forgive them. And then you can open up the door, cross the bridge of diversity, and work with the other person and teach each other and learn from each other. So,
well, do you remember this movie, the I Am documentary?
No.
Okay, it was done. Oh gosh, what is his this movie director's name? He did Ace Ventura and all these crazy movies, and then he had a concussion with his bicycle, and he had the post-concussion syndrome, where a lot of people want to die and they're so depressed. And he realized suddenly when he came out of all this 6 months later from this horrid depression, that none of the things that he thought that were important anymore. And that really what he really needed was love and compassion. And that all of these things he was striving for were really just empty suddenly. The fame, the house in Beverly Hills with the pool, the girls, the limos, all these things started, falling away. And we've been living in a society where people have been fed this lie that these things are the things that make you happy.
I mean, like greed is good from
Greed
Wall
is
Street.
good. And that is how it started, is with that one sentence, greed is good. That was the problem.
That's Wall Street for those people.
When I was growing up, or in my early 20s in the ashram with my guru, was a simplify. So I was exposed to the extreme opposite. Like I was ashamed if I had too much desire for those earrings down the store that I wanted, So, I would go into my teacher's office, and I had my coral earrings on, and he was kind of playing with them. Nice earrings, I thought, oh God, I'm so attached to this material world still. But the point,
joy and happiness is not necessarily from external, it's more internal. And I think people have to realize that, someone told me that her life, she was taught, do well in school, you'll get into the best college. Do well in college, you get the best job. Do well in job, you get a good job, you'll be able to afford a nice house, and you find the right man. And she got the house, she got the husband, she got the kids with the house with the picket fence, she got everything, and she was not happy. Right. It's when she decided to simplify and dissect what brings her joy, it comes from the inside. And that's what this is. And I think I've learned a lot about that. I reminded myself, being quarantined with my family, like how many women, I don't get manicures anymore. I haven't shopped anything. I haven't done anything in my hair. Most of the time I don't wear makeup, and I wear the same things like almost every day. It only goes to show we really don't need all the stuff, all the clutter. It's noise, and it doesn't bring us joy. To give away all that stuff, which I've been starting to do, collected some stuff to give away, that will bring you greater joy.
Exactly.
Than to actually receive things you don't need, because a lot of those things are just, the moment.
Well, I mean, it was, when Germany was divided, and then the wall came down. So a lot of people from East Germany came over to West Germany and was like, okay, we want to cash in now. We want everything that you've had for the last few decades. We want it all, and then the looting started and all this stuff started because they have felt deprived and separate. Yeah. And now suddenly the wall was ripped down, and they had an entitlement now to the payback. The payback was supposed to come. So when the payback didn't come, they were very disappointed.
Right.
Because all these years they thought, well, what are we missing? What are we missing? Look how these people live on the west side of Germany. They live this crazy, wonderful life. And then you get into that life, like so many beautiful African people, they came into Germany, and they are never going to be happy because they're out of their element.
Yeah.
They're out of their element, and that is just the part that just sometimes kills me when I watch these poor people being thrown into these situations where they're supposed to function in that society, and oh my God, it's just so out of where they are and the element of who they are in that beautiful place where they feel comfortable. So, I had a conversation with someone saying, if the Turkish people, when they brought a lot of the Turkish people over to be guest workers in Germany, and somebody said to me, make no mistake, if they could go back, they would go back in a heartbeat. because they don't really like it in Germany, or they don't want to come here. They just were forced to come here to survive, you know.
Right.
So we need to figure something out.
People in America the same way. They came here to make money, send back to their family, and
yeah. Well, but America is unique because we're hodgepodge.
Right.
So we've got everybody here, which is really unique. And we're all supposed to, you know, we are one humanity with different ideologies. And we're supposed to now graduate to the next level of the classroom. Humanity goes from 6th grade to maybe 7th and 8th grade now. That means, you know, we have to practice more tolerance.
It's been over 200 years. I don't know if we can graduate just yet. I don't know why it's taking so long.
I think it's going to happen. I have a positive feeling about it. I think. Yeah.
Change only happens when the will is there. You know, there's all alchemy, right? Transformation, alchemy. It's only when the heat is going on and a lot of the stuff is, and like all the gas is being released, you know, then you get that solid gold. So hopefully something happens.
What we can do, I think, individually, just for my audience, is pray, meditate on the light to protect our planet. Amen. And to trickle down little sparks of light into every human being to wake up. And that is the meditation that I'm holding at the moment, to bring peace and balance to people and to get us out of this craziness. So Susan, how do people get a hold of you? Do you want to share your website, or how do they call you? How do they make an appointment? Like if they're in California and they want to work with you, how would they do that? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So my website is called Art Mends Hearts.com, right? The art that mends your hearts, Art Mends Hearts. And you can also email me artmenshearts@gmail.com. And follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You know, I'll be happy to post my links on this comment in the comments. If anybody needs to reach me, I'd be very happy to answer any questions they have.
And that'll be on the bottom of the page. Gosh, it's such a pleasure to speak with you.
You know, Petra, may I just also add one moment? Because of what's going on in this world, I would like to offer a complimentary 30-minute phone call. If anybody needs some release, some anxiety release for like 30 minutes, I'd be happy to offer them anything, a phone call. So please put that out to your audience.
So I'll make sure that is all listed on the bottom of the page of the YouTube, and I will upload it today and edit it. I've had to learn how to edit things, you know, because everything was closed, and I had to train myself. I'm sure you've gone through this.
Well, yeah, it's very creative. It's very healthy, you know. It's like it's very important to come to obstacles, because when we get to that obstacles, we got to learn how to create to pass through it, to go through the obstacles.
I do love your Facebook Live show, by the way.
Oh, thank you. The one with our carpool coaching with Jackie and me at Thursday Thoughts at 3. You know,
fantastic.
Thank you.
After the last one where you both put your lipsticks on.
Well, we had to make a statement. But yeah, so we have a YouTube channel, Thursday Thoughts 3, if anybody wants to watch all our old episodes. And also we have another YouTube channel called Live with the Vibe. I also share it with you. It's with the 4 co-hosts that we have, that heart-to-heart conversations. And if anybody's interested in looking at those, they are welcome to look at them.
Thank you so much, Susan, for being here today. And I wish
Thank you so much for having me.
Marvelous evening, or it's afternoon there now, right? It's about what, 2 o'clock? 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Well, have a great rest of your day. Thank you, and let's connect real soon. Ciao, ciao.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
Signing off, Conversations with Petra Nicoll. And please click on the subscribe button and the little bell so you get my notifications whenever new shows come up. And I hope you're having a marvelous day. Stay positive, stay healthy, and take a walk in the woods. Arrivederci.